Today's subject is security jobs. I've held quite a few. So, after my stint in training police dogs, at the age of 18, I was still too young to actually join the police department. You had to be 21. So I thought that it would be best to go the security route and, get a job doing that. And I ended up working for this really small company, I think called Ross Security Services. I think that's what it was called. And my first job was at a construction site overnights. When I first started, it was just a field and they were just laying the foundation. I didn't have a car yet, so I spent the whole night walking around the empty lot, doing absolutely nothing. That was exciting. And then, over the weeks, the building started going up, and that was actually my first real long-term job. I worked for them for, 5 or 6 months. It was enough that I was able to get some money together and I bought a car. And so then, because that first site was just down the street from my house, which was very lucky for me. I was able to go and do that. And then once I got a car, he started sending me to other places as well. And I ended up sitting in my car watching a butcher shop. The butcher shop apparently had been broken into a few times, and so they hired security to keep an eye on it. I was there a couple of weeks, overnights again. Never saw anything, and the most difficult part of the whole thing was I'm in my car. This is pre-cell phone days. If there was somebody who tried to break in, I'd have to drive like 5 or 6 blocks to a payphone and call the police to get help. I didn't even have a radio to talk to anybody from my company, so that was pretty scary. Yeah, pretty scary. I did a lot of weird jobs like that for that company, and I ended up leaving. I think I went to Pinkerton's. Pinkerton's. If you're not familiar with the name, Pinkerton's was the detective agency that actually caught the Frank and Jesse James and many train robbers. It was a company, Alan Pinkerton, who formed the company back in the 1860s, was hired by Abraham Lincoln to stop train robbers, in the West as they were building out the trains and, passenger lines. It was also the foundation of the beginning of, I believe, the FBI. Though the official FBI wasn't formed until years later, but they did a lot of work that the FBI would have done if they had been together. I worked for Pinkerton's for many years, doing various jobs, working on call a lot of night shifts. And when I say night shifts, it's either 3 to 11s, 4 to midnights, midnight to 8, 11 to 7s, overnight type of things like that. Looks like the camera's looking up high. Let's tilt this down just a little bit. There we go. So, I also have worked for Burn Security and Allied and Securitas, and I have 18 years of security experience overall, working for different companies. My favorite would have been as a private security officer for Fidelity Investments. And yes, it is the securities company that sells stocks and bonds and stuff like that. But they also had in-house security. When I was living in New York City, I was managing the movie theater, And one day I got an email from this recruiting company that was like, hey, we saw your resume online, because I had put it up trying to find a job. And they're like, you're exactly what this company is looking for in New York. And the recruiting company was in Boston. And so I was a little confused on that. But I called them back and talked to them, and they were like, would you be interested in doing an interview? And at the time, I was working a lot of hours at the movie theater, and I was getting kind of burned out. And so I was like, yeah, I'd be interested. So I went to the interview, and I sat down and I talked with the supervisor, and we met at the New Jersey office, Jersey City. And we talked for about an hour, which was really nice. Got to know him a little bit, and it was just kind of general discussion. I think he was kind of feeling me out to see if I would fit in the team. And then he sent me home, and a couple hours later, I got a phone call from the recruiter saying, hey, they'd like to do a second interview in a couple of days. Can you do that? I was like, yeah, I can do that. So a couple days later, I ended up going into the New York office, and I met with the shift supervisors. There was 2 of them because they worked 12-hour shifts. So I met with them, and they asked me a few questions. They were very interested in the fact that I had trained as an EMT, and I'd worked in the police department. I had a lot of experience in security. And so they gave me a scenario and asked me to write a report. So, because they wanted to see, how well you can put your thoughts on paper, how well you can, put in the facts and things like that. So I wrote out the report and everything and gave it to them, and they thanked me, and I left. And I probably was home about 20 minutes when the recruiter called and offered me the job. And it was a $4 an hour raise in pay, 12-hour shifts, which was fine. It was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. You worked 4 days on, 3 days off, 3 days on, 4 days off. We ended up having every other weekend off. And that was great with me. So I worked there. My training period was 6 weeks long. I was trained in a lot of the policies and procedures within the building. I was trained in hand-to-hand combat, some refresher course on my first aid, CPR, first responder stuff, because it's been several years, and just updating my fingerprinting skills, because I learned how to fingerprint when I was working in the police department, and then I was good to go. And I was working, some wonderful shifts. I was on the 14th floor, 12th and 14th floor in a secured floors of a building that was secured with downstairs security that was separate from ours. So it was very safe. It was overnight. My office, the security office, was inside. We had the doors closed. We had internet, and we had cable television, so that we could keep an eye on what was happening. Watch the news, make sure nothing major was taking place within the area. This was in 2008 to 2009, and I worked in one of the World Trade Center buildings, which was why you had all of the training, all of the hand-to-hand, all of the first aid and everything. It wasn't just the pay and the hours that was the best. It was the respect that was given from everyone. If there was an incident and something was happening, and a security officer, myself, stepped into the room, everyone immediately would be quiet and turn to you to see what you wanted them to do. Even the president of the company, if security said everybody get out, everybody would get out without question. Nobody, well, I don't think this or I don't think that. It was security is in charge, and you do what they say. And that kind of respect was very, very nice. I ended up leaving that job and moving back to the West Coast, and I did another security job, and I absolutely hated it. I was a patrol officer driving around in a car, and that's all I did. I drove around like in 4 blocks, and I relieved people from their desks so they could do lunch or breaks or whatever. And while people were nice, you could tell that they weren't respectful. As far as they were concerned, we were just a blob sitting there, and it was a hard thing to take, and I ended up getting myself fired from that particular job, which was probably the best thing that happened to me, because from that I went back to school and my whole life changed. So security has given me a perspective on life that a lot of other people don't have. I dealt with a lot of people with drug and alcohol issues and mental issues. I've dealt with, entitled people, and also with some amazing people as well. Not everybody out there is bad. But it's a really hard job, and if you're watching this and you're a security guard, thank you very much for what you do. At least, you're doing the best that you can, and you're putting food on the table, and somebody has to do that job because it is actually a very important job. And if you're one of those people out there who look down on us, well, I hope you don't need somebody to come and help you sometime, because they may not be there. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope if you haven't already, you will subscribe to the channel, like this video, check out my other videos, and we'll see you again in the next one.